Gosh, I just couldn't be bothered. I'm exhausted, and I need a good rest. Boss, I need a medical leave today. Well, do you often feel tired and unable to catch up with your daily routine? So, what exactly happens to you physically and mentally when you are exhausted? Medically, there are endless reasons to drive one to feel tired. Today, we are here to explore a few fundamental factors or lifestyle-related issues that are associated with tiredness and chronic fatigue, perhaps a simple remedy for your reference. Knowing these basics will likely ensure your energy factory is kept in check most days. So, stay tuned. In the world of modernization and civilization, late bedtime, and perhaps poor sleep quality, become part of the modern culture in practice. This phenomenon of sleep deprivation is not just observed in adults, it's also not an uncommon finding among school-aged students and scholars for obvious reasons, namely active nightlife, and high parental and society expectations in academic performance. With that said, this has a pronounced negative health impact, mentally and physically, in the long run. Tiredness is in fact just one part of the fatigue syndrome associated with poor sleep and sleep inadequacy. A good sleep not only helps energy restoration, but also enhances physical and mental rejuvenation, and this works critically well in the early part of the night, in the dark environment. In other words, the formula of positive health benefits from sleep is not merely driven by adequate sleep duration, but also in the presence of biological activation by darkness within a dedicated biological time frame, during which the body cortisol level, or a stress hormone if you like, is kept minimal. Other than making a routine early bedtime, in off-light mode, sleeping in darkness activates melatonin release from pineal gland, a hormone that builds sleep quality and good health. Interestingly, an adequate infrared light exposure under the sun during the day also promotes melatonin secretion by mitochondria, as well as vitamin D synthesis. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it's undoubtedly a potent antioxidant, way more powerful than glutathione. In essence, melatonin and vitamin D are two ingredients to drive a good sleep. So, go under the sun when you have difficulty in falling asleep next time. Alternatively, sit near the fireplace, or campfire, and candlelight, which are good sources of infrared light emission. Avoid excessive exposure to artificial light, or LED, from screening, or TV, which may deplete body melatonin level. In other words, prolonged screening predisposes to insomnia. A stressful lifestyle, or mental distress, is another major driving force to tiredness and chronic fatigue. Medically, it's called adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue is attributed to constantly elevated immunosuppressive hormone, called cortisol. High cortisol hormone triggers glucose synthesis internally from fat and protein. With that said, people who suffer adrenal fatigue not just experience lethargic due to constantly elevated blood glucose, but also tend to fall sick readily, leading to post-viral fatigue syndrome. A phenomenon of abrupt energy loss, seen following an acute distress, as in panic attack and fear, is attributed to a surge in cortisol level, followed by high sugar spike, much like feeling sleepy and tired following a high-carbs lunch. Do consider looking into unresolved adrenal fatigue after long recovery from initial viral infection. Supplementation with multivitamin B, vitamin D, zinc, and adequate appropriate sun exposure may help to speed up recovery with enhanced immunity. Feeling exhausted after a midday meal? Beware of the possibility of high sugar level in the background of insulin resistance. People may long suffer insulin resistance without knowing it. Insulin resistance causes constantly elevated blood sugar and is attributed to overindulging in a regular high-carbs lifestyle. Go and get a metabolic health assessment if you have unexplained skin tags, difficulty to lose weight despite being physically active, constant hunger and feeling low in energy, carbs craving, or trouble falling asleep at night. The best way to counter these metabolic health issues is to do intermittent fasting, best in the background of low-carbs lifestyles. Ironically, a constant consumption of grains, such as whole grain, comes with added health risks, secondary to anti-nutrient factors. The anti-nutrient factor poses risk of nutritional deficiency, which in turn contributes to additional fatigue, in the background of already existing insulin resistance-driven lethargy. Last but not least, inadequacy of stomach acidity and associated vitamin deficiency may lead to lethargy too. Long-term inappropriate consumption of acid-suppressive agents, such as proton pump inhibitors, or use of chronic medicines that affect nutrient absorption, is an example of medically induced chronic fatigue syndrome. Leaky gut syndrome, anti-nutrient factors, like phytates, as well as autoimmune conditions, called pernicious anemia, are possible underlying etiologies driving chronic fatigue, in the background of constant plant sources, multigrains consumption. In study, apple cider is shown to promote stomach acidity, as well as alleviate insulin resistance, by keeping blood sugar in check, after carbs consumption. Adding multivitamins and essential minerals helps those with nutritional deficiency, in particular vegans, provided malabsorption is of no concern. Avoiding regular consumption of wholesome, to mitigate risk of gut system damage, secondary to autoimmune disease, and leaky gut syndrome. In essence, having a good stress coping strategy, and early bedtime, low carbs lifestyle, and intermittent fasting, as well as regular sun exposure and good nutrition, are fundamental health hygiene to mitigate risk of chronic fatigue syndrome.